All right. Uh, so welcome everyone. Thanks for taking out time on a Saturday evening. I think it's going to be a very exciting session. Like I said, the topic is the evolution of content marketing. This is an ask me anything kind of a session. So it's a session completely for addressing any of your questions. We will pick up the questions as and when we see it on the chat box. Uh, and without further ado, I would like to welcome Deepashree Das. Deepashree, are you able to hear me?
Yes, very clearly.
Great. Warm welcome to the session. I think there's a lot of interest in this topic in general and also in today's session. We will have folks coming in the next 2 minutes as well. We currently have more than 70 people already on the call. Cool. So in terms of the agenda for the day, guys, after I introduce our esteemed speaker, we will take questions roughly in 3 or 4 broad areas, including the role of content marketing in digital marketing, how should one look at using content effectively, and what are some of the trends and shifts that are happening, primarily driven by technology, but also consumer behavior. And if there are questions out of this gamut of topics, we will pick it up. So please make sure that you put out your questions on the chat box. And I also request everyone to stay on mute during the session, and so that it's very convenient and an insightful session for everybody on the call. With that, let me introduce our speaker for the day. Uh, so warm welcome, Deepashree. Deepashree is a seasoned award-winning marketing leader. She has close to 17 years of experience in both launching and architecting brands for driving their exponential business growth across both India and Southeast Asia. Yeah, she has spent a sizable part of her career working on developing frameworks and go-to-market strategies, uh, and this is ground up for new brands, mandates, and teams uh, at organizations, including a global OTT content platform. You guys can make a guess. Singtel and companies like NDTV and also Unilever. Uh, she believes that marketing magic lies in the delicate nexus between creative storytelling and insight-driven decision making, uh, with an ultimate goal of driving both business growth and love for the brand. She is a has been awarded multiple awards. The recent one being an MMA Smarties 2020 winner for mobile innovation. She was also one of the LinkedIn Power Profile in Singapore in 2017. Uh, a very warm welcome, Deepashree. Uh, Guys on the call, just a quick note, Deepashree is here on purely a personal capacity, uh, wanting to share her experience in content marketing as a space. So we will take up all questions which are focusing on content marketing, right? We will not be taking up questions on specific strategies and nuances at the global OTT content platform she is currently working at. Yeah. But having said that, once again, very warm welcome, Deepashree, and we're glad that you were able to make this time on a Saturday evening for us.
Thank you. Thank you for having me. And I see that close to 100 people are already on the call. So thank you for spending this evening with us. And I hope that, we can both have learning and sharing interactively.
Definitely. With that, let me get started. Deepashi, if I had to put out a broad question out there, right? What is the role of content marketing in digital marketing, and how is it evolving?
So let me start with the role of content marketing, guys. So whether you're doing digital marketing, whether you're doing offline marketing, whether you're doing what is being called phygital marketing, which is basically a mix and match of both sort of online and offline strategies, think of content marketing as a very strategic choice that you'll be making, a very strategic sort of strategy that you will be setting out, a very thought through, and last but not the least, a very long term strategy that will be part of your marketing. So if I may rephrase that question, the role of content marketing in marketing is super old. It's nothing new. It is definitely evolving as we speak. In fact, back in time when I started first doing content marketing at one of my jobs in Singtel, I remember during my research, trying to understand where did it evolve first. And it's very interesting, and you guys can read up about it. It was actually in the year 1895. A US based farming agro technology company called John Deere, and they started publishing this magazine called The Furrow. It's very interesting because he, as a sort of a technologist for agriculture, if you call him that, he was making farming machines, etc. He didn't know how to reach his followers or his potential customers, and he basically wanted to be useful to them. So that's basically his first sort of desire, and he starts by doing that, and then he realizes that because he's being useful to his audience, he is slowly but surely building a really big customer base, one that is very loyal to him. So if you look at that as 1869, so you can imagine how much it would have evolved. That is recorded in history as probably one of the earliest content marketing exercises. But let me just tell you something interesting, right? I think we are all doing content marketing. If you go to a party and if you introduce yourself, highly unlikely that you go with a copy of your resume, right? So you tell a story about yourself. The story that you tell is often targeted to the audience. So my story is up there on the slide. It is targeted to this audience that sort of has come here to spend this hour with me. If I'm with my closest friends, my story will be very different. My introduction will be very different. We are all doing content marketing, whether we like it. Yeah, we are doing it for ourselves. We are doing it for our brands. We are doing it for the things that we are passionate about. When you start to put this strategy, this plan, this roadmap down on a piece of paper, that's when it becomes a really sort of a sophisticated science, like I said, and a very fine art. So should content marketing be part of your strategy? 100%. Should content marketing be a part of your digital strategy? Yeah, totally possible. You don't have to publish a magazine like The Furrow, like a paper magazine, right? You can make it an online experience. Should it be part of your offline experiences? Yes, a number of brands do it very, very successfully. And I'd like to conclude this answer by saying B2B brands are actually really good at doing both online and offline sort of plans when it comes to rolling out their content strategy. So has it evolved from 1895? Yes, totally. Has it become super sophisticated, hyper targeted, and really, really cool as an art and a science to follow? Yes, it has. But your principles still remain the same. Your principles are to be useful to your audience, is to add value, so that in the long term, you build something that is very loyal as a sort of a customer base to you. And as we go along, I'm sure we'll have opportunities to talk about how we can go about doing that, and what does a consistent strategy look like.
Got it. It's very interesting. I mean, content marketing goes back such a long. It has such an old story behind it. It's very interesting. On that note, right? How do you think it has changed over the last few years, right? What do you see impacting, the change that is happening in how to use content as part of your marketing?
Okay. It changes every day. I'll tell you the big change that happened between last year and this year. If you're asking specifically about this particular year, I was reading a Think with Google report for Southeast Asia, not including India. So if you add India, probably the numbers will be much higher. 40 million new users have started using the internet as of 2020, which basically means 70% of the Southeast region actually is on the internet now to probably do groceries, to do online education, to do telehealth or telemedicine, or online fitness or what have you. So can you imagine when your audience and their presence and their media habits changes this drastically? This change that has happened hasn't happened in the last 20 years combined. So when an event of this nature happens, it brings a lot more people and makes them far more accessible, right? So if I may talk about a couple of changes that have happened, especially in the past, let's say about the past 5 years, right? So two changes. One is, as of last year, you'll have more people being online. So your ability to tell stories online, your ability to build a marketing strategy, a content marketing strategy that is focused, targeted, consistent, and focused on ROI, while having online at the heart of it, is going to be super, super critical, right? So let's say you were a brand and you were doing your sort of your content marketing strategies or your content marketing exercises through offline webinars or through conferences. Now imagine in a year where all of it shut down, what you're going to do. So that's one of the big changes. The second is, I'd say since 2015 or even earlier, this field has become hyper targeted, right? It's become
Yes.
hyper targeted. It's become personalized. Has become the name of the game, and I'm using those terms loosely, but really big areas where you need to spend a lot of time, money, science, expertise to understand how to make that happen, right? So it's very, very important that we realize that one size doesn't fit all. It never fit all, but post 2015 and 2010, even if you will, uh, it stopped fitting all anyways. Why do I bring the mid of the decade as an example? Something happened at that point of time, right? So I'll take you back in time to 2005, when one of the finest companies when it comes to marketing and or content marketing, right? Procter and Gamble. They came up with this model called it was called the 3-step stimulus model. I can't remember the exact name, but you guys can check it out. They sort of have a proprietary ownership of that. So it was a very sort of 3-step consumer purchase pathway, or path to purchase, like they called it. It was very simple. You saw a stimulus, you went ahead and bought it in the store. That was called the first moment of truth. And the second moment of truth was the experience that you had with the product after you bought it. Now imagine that is 2000, early 2000s. A lot of us probably were already working. A lot of us were in college. A lot of us were probably pursuing academics at that point of time. Now, exactly 10 to 8 years later, Google comes out with this model called Zero Moments of Truth. Don't ask me why they called it Zero Moments of Truth. Google ZMOT, and you'll find out a lot about it. It threw the entire concept of there being just 1 or 2 moments of truth up in the air. It told you that once you receive the stimulus, there could be endless moments of truth where you could be making decision about which brand to buy, right? Those moments of truth could be awareness. Those moments of truth could be discovery. Those moments of truth could be reference. Those moments of truth could be discussing with your friends. Those moments of truth could be reading up blogs. Those moments of truth, as of today, would be hugely influencer led. So when your purchase path or your purchase decision making cycle goes from being linear to being multilinear, it's not linear at all. That entire notion's been thrown out of the window. Can you imagine how your marketing and how your content marketing would have changed, right? So I imagine that at that point of time, a lot of us would have lost our sleep and said, oh wait, hang on a second. So there is multiple moments where I could tell a story, multiple moments where I could influence a decision or increase consideration, or I could drive them towards purchasing my brand. Multiple moments where I could be useful to my customers. So that is probably, Shriram, one of the biggest changes that this industry has seen, both marketing and within it, obviously the huge science and art of content marketing. That change has meant that you'll have to rethink what your content marketing looks like. It may not necessarily end up being just a blog. It may not necessarily end up having only one set of audiences that you were looking at. You may find your audiences at multiple places. So to sum up, I'd say one of the biggest changes that happened in 2020 is that it became hyper digital. For a lot of us, see, that's not a big change.
And
Sorry.
Guys, request you to be on mute.
Thank
Thanks.
you. So for a lot of us, that's not a big change. For myself, I've been working with very digitally focused brands for a long time now. So that change just became heightened. But imagine for fitness brands, for telehealth, or for example, education that underwent the hugest amount of change, right? For them, that's a really big change. So that's one of the biggest change, that you would have to be very conversant with the digital and social medium, even more so coming in from 2020 to 2021. And the biggest change has actually been in the last decade, where your linear consumer purchase pathways have completely gone out of the window, and you have very circuitous, that's a word I use, I call them circuitous purchase pathways, or CPP, so that I remember and I don't forget. So when you have that, that's when you are really rethinking your entire marketing strategy overall. And of course, if you have a content marketing strategy within it, you're rethinking all of that as well.
Got it. Got it. I think the next couple of questions that are coming on the chat box, and also what I had in mind, I think it deserves a poll before we get into that question. Yeah.
Mhm.
Uh, so, guys, I'm going to launch a poll for you. It's just take a couple of seconds, and it's a simple question. Let's see what you guys think, and then we'll take those questions up. Here you go. Is advertising and content marketing the same? All right, last 5 seconds, guys. All right, let's see the results. 74% have said no, 15% have said yes, and 11% are on the fence.
I love the maybes. There's always the maybes, which is like in the range of 10 to 15%. Can't make up your
Right.
mind.
Yes.
That's okay. That's okay. There is a trick in there. No, it's not the same. It's absolutely not the same. So the way you approach advertising and content marketing, there are similarities, but there are huge differences as well. So at the heart of advertising is creating information, awareness, desirability, consideration, all of that, right? At the heart of content marketing is having a really long term thinking on how you can be useful and valuable to your customers, therefore in the long run building a valuable customer base. You will very highly unlikely be salesy in your content marketing endeavors. Your end objective is that, and I know there's a question coming up on ROI and all of that, so don't worry about it. No one's going to let you spend any money on content marketing if you don't show them the ROI. But the approach, I'd say the basic differences is in the approach and the intent. The intent, at the end of the day, we are all in the service of the consumer or the brand, however you want to look at it, right? So one is very direct. Advertising is always very, very direct. It helps you create awareness, it helps you create differentiation, it helps you create salience, and sometimes it helps you create a lot of conversation around the brand, and that's all great. You decide what you want at which stage of your brand, and you can go after it, right? Content marketing can do all of that. Content marketing can do all of that over a very long period of time. I'm going to use terminology here, and just to lighten up the mood, and I hope no one takes offense. Content marketing is not a fling, it's a marriage. So it's not something you do and get out of. It's something that you keep doing, you keep working on it because there is a larger goal at hand, right? So it's a relationship that you build over time. When you look at a content marketing exercise, it is very rarely, if ever, that you do only one thing for your content marketing content marketing strategy, right? Or your content marketing toolkit. It is probably, if you're doing that, then you're probably advertising, and that's good for you because that's probably what your brand needs, right? So are there similarities inherently? Yes, but your approach and your intent will be very, very different. So with content marketing, if you're looking to immediately look at a change in your brand track parameters, very unlikely that's going to happen. It's a slow burn, it's consistent, and it helps builds the kind of brand that, let's say, Amex is as of now, or John Deere is as of now, or Nike is as of now, or Closer Home Cult Fit is as of now, right? That's a very long-term strategy. Can advertising be part of your content marketing? 100%. It can be a part of your content marketing because you are building, and we'll talk about customer personas and journeys and all of that. You're building an entire life cycle. You're building an entire journey. In that journey, could you put in advertising as a very effective part of your strategy? I'd say yes, because I've done that in the past. So I have built an entire B2B content marketing strategy, and LinkedIn advertising was a huge part of that. So can you say that that was not content marketing? Yes, but that was a very different kind of content marketing, and that wasn't the only thing I was doing. So I'd say differentiate the approach, differentiate the intent, and one can be a part of the other. But advertising, by doing just advertising, you're not doing content marketing. So don't let anyone fool you.
Got it. So I think Ruchira has a question on that, right? So digital marketing is done by all, but only some get it right. So what is the game changer? Like in your mind, what are some factors one needs to keep in mind while designing a winning content strategy?
Hi, Ruchira. Thanks for the question. So, I think if you, there is a lot more, I'm happy to give you the answer. So I'm going to give you a very direct and forthright answer. It may not sit very well with everyone, but it's the truth. I have learned a lot by doing. So I'll speak from my experience. And I think that if you Google this, you'll probably find a really complicated and answer to that. I think there are a couple of things. There is no game changer. I'd start at the very beginning and I'd say the difference between what you do and how you do and how others are doing and what the results that they are getting are is in a couple of things. One is really how well do you understand your consumer? Okay, so I have been part of several brand teams, and I know it sounds really unglamorous, right? You're like, no, I wish she was going to say something like performance marketing or the amount of money that we spent. Yeah, sure, all of that is there. But let's start at the very beginning. Okay, how much time do we actually spend being obsessed with our consumers? Ask yourself that question. That is very often than not the game changer, right? That is very often than not the game changer, guys. Some of the most successful brands that I have had the privilege of working with are obsessed with their consumers, are obsessed with their customers. They are obsessed with being able to understand them, being able to understand who they are, being able to understand their motivations today and their aspirations for tomorrow. So it's a lot of spending time with the consumer. So I'm going to give you an example of the first company that I ever worked with, which was Unilever. We had to clock in a certain number of hours having physically spent time with our consumers in a month, and you couldn't fake it. You had to go down to Lucknow, you had to go down to the villages, depending on the brand that you were leading. You had to go and sit and spend time with them. Uh, I love reading reports, but you're never gonna sort of you're never going to understand your consumers' motivations by sort of reading reports. So I highly urge that one of the first game changers is really sort of understanding who your consumers are. Uh, Professor Clayton Christensen, he is probably one of the most strategic minds and prestigious minds when it comes to talking about strategy. He's passed on now, but in a recent sort of course that I was attending, he talks about dumpster diving with your audience, which basically means you have to go where the audience is at. And
Okay.
like it or not, that is quite literally the game changer, right? Now, imagine if you have understood your audience really well. When we talk about customer personas later, there are 2, 3 different kinds of customer personas that you need to build. What you will be able to do is you'll have to relook at why you're doing what you're doing, right? The third point is you will then look at your entire mapping of your strategy. Strategy is how you want to do what you want to do. So the how of it will also be driven by how well you understand your consumer. So you know what's happening? These 3 parts, and the fourth part is your tactics and your execution. That's where your money, your performance marketing, your targeting, all of that comes in there. You know what we are doing as a generation today? We are spending a whole lot more time in the fourth module instead of spending time upfront in the first, second, and third module. So any brand that basically, Nike, for example, is one of probably our favorite brands, right? What it does is it is obsessed with the consumer. It is obsessed to the extent where it realizes probably or thinks about what is it that the consumer wants tomorrow when it comes to fitness or athleticism or whatever have you, right? So think about those 3 modules. Number 1 is be obsessed with your consumer. Number 2, understand their motivations and map your strategy. Your strategy is not what you will do, but how you will do what you will do. And then the third one is really trying to sort of build an entire consistent plan around that. Whether that's digital marketing or non-digital marketing, I say spend a lot of time upfront and then get to the fourth model, which I know all of us are doing. All of us are spending a hyper amount of time trying to figure out whether we should do SEO, SEM, should we buy, ads on Facebook or Instagram. I say do all of that. But obsess about the first 3 steps of your strategy before you go to the fourth.
Got it. Got it. But then do all kind of sizes of companies have the luxury to do this? I mean, I can understand the Nike or even Cult Fit now. thinking about a long-term strategy while parallelly executing their performance marketing. But what about the smaller companies like small and medium enterprises or agencies, or even a startup like Antwalk, right? Uh, is there a right time to put together this grand strategy, or it's? I mean, what's your take on that?
I'm going to demystify that. It's not grand at all. I have done it with very little budgets as part of a really big conglomerate, but we were launching what was going to be a startup within that big company, right? I can openly tell you, I had the kind of budgets that you guys would probably laugh at. When I say customer obsession and really trying to put together a plan, it really is intent over resources. We were a 2 people team trying to launch a startup within a really big company. And did we have the ability to go meet consumers? No, we met them telephonically. We met them over email. We spoke to as many people within our friends circles and our networks that reflected the personification of that audience, right? And secondly, when it comes to the strategy, strategy in and of itself has been made to sound very grand, guys. So I'm going to demystify it, saying, like a lot of you, I haven't had the advantage of going to a really big or prestigious business school. So I have learned a lot along the way. I love demystifying strategy. Don't get me wrong. I love strategy. Strategy is, like I said, a roadmap or a really, really awesomely robust plan of how you're going to do what you're going to do, right? And yes, there are lots of frameworks, there are lots of very grand ways to do it, but it really is that. It is really a roadmap about what you want to do, how you want to do what you want to do. You brought up the example of Antwerp. Shriram, you walked into this, so I'm going to use this as an example. The very fact, this particular exercise that we are in right now, 121 people sitting on a, okay, we are in a lockdown, so let's face it, we have nothing better to do. But at 7 p.m. on a Saturday, and wherever you're dialing in from, wherever else, whatever time of the world it is, you are a live participant in a content marketing exercise. Antwalk is a startup, and this is a very, very smart, very, very targeted content marketing exercise. What are we trying to showcase through this collaboration that I have going with Antwalk? That learning can happen on the go, learning can happen outside of academia, upskilling can happen sitting at your own house at 7 p.m. on a Saturday, thanks to the fine folks at Antwalk. This is a superb example of what content marketing tells. Like, I will not answer how much money it took, but it's a free masterclass, as all of you can see. So if you understand your audience well enough, that yes, all of us want to learn, all of us are at home, right? Thank you, Vinay. All of us are at home, and all of us really want to find out what is Antwerp up to. So, Shriram, to answer your question, is it too early? No, it clearly isn't for you. So I'd say it isn't the same for everyone else over here is, but I don't want to give you guys a blanket answer. It is, I have done content marketing for a brand at its very inception, and I have done and continue to do content marketing for brands that are at a very matured stage of their existence. There is no right or wrong time to begin. If you as a brand feel that you'll know your customers very well, you'll know your fans or your audiences very well. If you feel that this is not the right time, when I say if you feel, I mean that you have assessed your audience, you have done all of the SWOT analysis around them, you have built the entire consumer journey, you have built the entire consumer personas, and then you've sat back and said, you know what, right now I need to create just top of mind awareness. Right now I just need to create consideration right now, and then I will go into advocacy. So between awareness, consideration, purchase, and advocacy, at some point of time, and I'm oversimplifying this consumer journey, right? Between these 4 stages, you as the brand manager or business manager get to decide where should content marketing insert yourself. There is no right or wrong answer. In fact, when we were back in Singapore, when we were trying to launch this startup within a really big multinational company, I actually had my doubts. And I actually sat down with my manager and I said, are you absolutely sure that we don't want to just advertise? Are you absolutely sure that we don't want to just, tell people what this is about? instead of really going down this path of creating strategic thinking, papers, think tank, tying up with CMOs, CEOs, really doing these webinars were not a thing then. So really proper conferences, etc. And we can talk about why we chose to go down that route, but we chose to go down that route. Antwork's choosing to go down that route because they know that education, upskilling, and being in a lockdown and 40 million more people having joined the internet is a magic alchemy of making this happen. So you will know your customer, you will know the need, you will know which stage of the highly simplified 4-stage consumer journey you want to insert content marketing in. Uh, there is no fit model. So don't expect to download a template from the internet and have a go at it. By all means, try it. I wish you luck.
Yes, perfect. I think we have talked a bit about this, but guys, time for another poll. Let's see how many of you guys were hearing this. Here you go. Content marketing can be a short-term strategy. Yes, no, maybe. All right, last 2 seconds. All right, let's see the results. 70% say no, 17 yes, and we still have a 12% said maybe.
How much do you want to bet that the maybe will always be between 12 to 15%? It's never going to empirical data, guys. I can see what you're doing. So I'll tell you, in my experience, it's a no. I don't know of too many brands that have succeeded in having a very flitty short-term content marketing strategy. However, if your brand's existence is limited to a certain amount of time, and I don't know of any such examples, that probably is the only example I can think of, or there is a particular problem you're trying to solve, right? That's when it can be somewhat short term. So I'll tell you what I mean by that. Let me explain the short term part of it. I've seen very few success stories on that. So I am clearly in the 70% that has voted it as a no. I started by saying it's not a fling, it's a marriage. For example, if you're facing a crisis, okay, your brand is in a crisis. At that point of time, you may decide to, let's say, stop all your advertising, and you may decide to go down the path of education and value creation. So at that point of time, you may say, hey, for the next 1 or 2 years, I'm going to have a very dedicated, focused content marketing strategy, and I'm going to not have advertising as a part of it, right? So that is the only one sort of situation, at least in my experience of quite a few years, that I have seen success come out of, and a lot of basically brands, B2B brands do that. You know why? Because it's slightly easier for them to switch off their advertising, and slightly because their target audience is often very, very focused, and very, very and slightly smaller but big ticket sort of audiences, right? Now, when that happens, you are able to quite literally pivot for a couple of years and focus on that. But I'll be very honest, content marketing, the question was, can content marketing be a short-term strategy? The answer is no, according to me. If you want success, it has to be a long-term, highly focused, focused on value creation and ROI both, as a strategy. So, and I have way more examples of those than on the other side. So unless anyone on the chat has a different example, I'd love to hear that, but it's a no for me.
Got it. I think on mute. No, okay. Yeah. So I think no, that's great. Yeah. So I think there's some questions which are coming up in the sense, in this time frame, how do you create this content strategy, especially, for example, somebody in the chat box said that a lot of the Google search engines are filtering out a lot of content out based on their algorithms. People's behaviors are also changing, the consumption pattern is changing. So how should you think of creating content in social media? I think one of the questions is also, how do we strategize our content for 1 minute on social media, right? What's your take on that?
That's a tough one. So this is sort of, I call it the sort of the 1 minute generation. So anything beyond 1 minute, you need to go to IGTV. So that's like an additional task that you need to do. It frustrates me as well. Even though I'm an older millennial, it frustrates me. There's no easy answer, guys. This is a super tough question. People spend years trying to figure it out. Right? I would start by, again, sort of, and you'll hear me say this over and over again, but it really starts with your consumers, right? Sriram, repeat the question again. I think you asked me two questions. So I want to understand the question so I can break it up.
Sure. So the first question is around the social media part, right? How do you actually create a 1 minute kind of content to cater to this generation of folks?
Okay.
And the second question, yeah. So I'll to the second question once you have answered this one. Yeah.
Tell me the second one first. The second leading to the first.
Got it. The second one was more around, people are, especially this is more related to content which is searchable, right, on search engines, right, with so much filtering and so much algorithms playing a bigger role in it. How should you think about creating content?
Okay. Guys, the first question, it's a myth that everyone only likes or gravitates towards 1 minute content. It's a very dangerous myth. If you believe that, I mean, people would have stopped producing long form content, or documentaries, or even the kind of shows that you see on OTT platforms, if 1 minute was the only thing that people bothered about. That's not true. So I'd urge you to stop thinking that you need to program for the 1 minute audience. If you need to program for the 1 minute audience, I think you'd be very interested in the Gen Z audience. A whole lot of them can be found on TikTok, on Snapchat, and sort of the short content apps, right? That's a wholly different strategy. So you will then think about, they are very much in the moment. They are all about creativity, and they are all about making their life easier and better. Very, very different sort of motivations, right? I'd ask you, why is it so important for you, and where does this decision come from that you should only create 1 minute content for the audience, right? I don't think you should think of it this way. But if you do have to create, so let's break down the question. If you do have to create 1 minute content for the Insta generation, or the, how do I put it, the non-IGTV generation, by the way, just FYI, IGTV, which basically once you cross 1 minute or 60 seconds or 59 seconds, it takes you to IGTV, actually has a much bigger rate of engagement than the 1 minute videos. So just FYI. So let's keep this in mind. And Insta algo changes all the time, right? So when you are creating, let's assume you are that brand who wants to be hyper millennial, hyper Gen Z. I think there are a couple of things to keep in mind. Which is when I'd love for you to think about this as a storytelling exercise, right? Story has a beginning, a middle, and an end. So please think about your video, or whatever it is that you're doing, if it's a live thing, or if it's an edited video, or if it's a montage of pictures, etc., that you're doing in a 1 minute. Think about what's the beginning, middle, and end of that. Secondly, remember that the generation that wants the 1 minute content also wants to interact with you. So ask yourself, after putting out this 1 minute content, what is the interaction that you want out of it? We say call to action. So the call to action in that video should be very, very clear, if you ask me, right? Third is, again, this is a very creative thing that we'll all need to get better at. So if you are going to be using certain creative devices to tell your story, now whether that's music, or whether that's art, or whether that's a person, or whether that's just me talking for 1 minute, right? There's a whole lot of that on the internet right now, or on Instagram right now. You have to really ask yourself, what is your strongest creative device? I would say my recommendation would be to use one really strong creative device and use everything else as like a backup orchestra, right? Don't try using more than one to tell the pivotal point of your story. And the last and the most important thing is, that's where your life is going to become very tough. Knowing fully well on a very ongoing live basis as to what is it that your audience wants on that day. So the TikTok generation, TikTok takes a whole lot of pain to program for its audience in a manner that it's live and it's applicable for that day. Trends on TikTok do not survive for more than 15, 20 days. We all know that. So if you're going to go down that route, I'd highly recommend that you dumpster dive with your audience as often as you can, and you try and keep track of what is it that they are in it for. So if there is a trend, can you either participate in it? Can you be the contrarian voice to that trend? So that would also make your 1 minute content that you're obsessed with a far more targeted one. I hope that answers your question.
Very well put. Priya, as an example here, she says Zomato's regular communication revolves around food, which is an ad, but also once in a day asks about how are we doing in such unprecedented times. We hope you're taking care of your health and let us know if you need a hot cup of soup. And that's the long-term relationship building and content marketing. Great one, Priya. Namrata is asking us from your perspective, Deepashree, can you give us some examples of content marketing gone wrong? And maybe a few where you thought it was ace.
Wow, I actually didn't prepare for this, Namrata. So I didn't think anyone would be asking me what went wrong. Let me try. So there are so many successes, right? So Google is one of them. Let me start with the successes, guys. Like, what a negative bunch of people. You should asking me about successes. Run and learn from it. But okay, come to my boot camp and we'll talk about what not to do in content marketing, right? Can't give you all the answers now, right? Otherwise, Namrata, you'll never come to the boot camp. Enough to see you there. Some of the best examples, actually, I'll just leave you with before I go to the worst that I've seen, which is not too many because people won't let it get out of hand. The entire content marketing exercise that Google does with Think with Google, it's incredible. It probably is. I think there's a question of B2B marketing. Hang on a second. Okay.
Yes.
I'm actually talking about that. So great. I'm answering your question as well. So some of the best examples of Google does both B2B and B2C. So they Think with Google, Google Marketing Platform, Digital Garage, Google for Small Businesses. These are all part of a very, very large content marketing exercise. At the end of the day, if they are going to be the world's largest search engine, and that's where a whole lot of your advertising and or content marketing is going to begin, continue, and end, they decided long back that they needed to give you value. So if you remember, I started this conversation today by quoting a Think with Google report. They have become almost a huge point of reference for all of us in the industry. We all study those reports on a regular basis. What does those reports do? They make us feel, and I'm going to use very consumer language right now, they make us feel that Google is an expert when it comes to A, B, and C, right? So that is a fantastic example of a B2B come B2C content marketing strategy. Check out what Amex used to do a couple of years back. They won several awards for the kind of stuff, financial advisory kind of stuff that they used to do. A lot of mutual funds actually do very, very, very good sort of content marketing exercises. And, I was thinking this afternoon, actually B2B brands, which is IT, tech, pharma, they are actually all really seasoned at doing content marketing. Why? Because oftentimes their advertising has to be very factual, and there's very less emotion, right? Like when you're selling like SaaS, what emotion are you going to give, right? Versus when you're selling a baby care brand, there can be a lot of emotions. So I think they replace emotion with value, with concrete value, and they do a really great job at it. And those are just some of the examples that I urge you to check out. To be very honest, I haven't seen too many bad examples. In the past 2 or 3 years in India, I noticed that a lot of brands actually jumped into the bandwagon of social advertising, each of them picking up a social cause. And Sriram, you can still hear me?
Yes, you are audible.
Okay, awesome. Thank you. Sorry, I thought I lost you guys in between. Yeah, so one of the sort of pitfalls that I've seen is honestly just essentially just a lot of brands in India trying to have a voice when it comes to social marketing, right? Which is basically a little, it feels like everyone wanted to jump into the bandwagon. I think everyone from Dabur to whoever have you. But I honestly, I'll apologize that I don't actually have an answer of not really good content marketing, but that's a great question, Namrata. So I'm going to think about it for the bootcamp. Thank you.
Great. Sorry, guys. I think that was me who got dropped. Hopefully, we didn't lose anybody here. Great. So I think there's an interesting section here. I think I also want to get into quickly spend 15-20 minutes, Deepashree, on how do you go about preparing for this, whether as a pure play content marketer or as part of a larger marketing role as well, right? So because I'm seeing a lot of questions here, what kind of books should we read? What should we do? How should we prepare for this? In fact, a lot of people are also asking, what was your career journey into where you have finally reached? So let's talk a little bit around that aspect for the next few minutes.
A couple of resources that I think you guys can check out. See, there's sorry, someone has to go on mute. There's a little bit of noise.
Yeah, I'm checking. Yep.
Awesome. Thanks, Shriram. So there are lots of resources, guys. So the best resource is an open mind and curiosity. So like I started by saying, I didn't have the opportunity to, or I honestly didn't have a chance to even take a break in my career to sort of really go learn this in a far more academic environment. So a lot of my learnings are on the job, and having made the mistakes I've made and having had the learnings I've had. So one of the resources when I was starting out in content marketing, I'll give you an example of when that was. When I was moving from Channel News Asia to in Singapore to Singtel, I was actually hired to do content marketing strategy for a startup within Singtel, which is a huge telco to be launched. And like I said, that's the company that we didn't have too much budget for, right? So I learned it on the job. So I'll share some resources that might be helpful for you. So Content Marketing Institute, CMI, is actually a really good source for you if you want to get started. They are amazing, and I credit a lot of my initial academic desk research on them. They give you really good frameworks on how you can explain a long-term ROI for content marketing. What are some of the models? So they link you out to various other things. So another sort of blog, if you will, that I used to follow is actually Marketing Sherpa, SHERPA. So you can look at that as well. Second, the first is open mind and curiosity. Second is this couple of resources. Third is really, if you spend an evening trying to deconstruct what Google's content marketing strategy is, you'll be 50% richer in your content marketing journey. Okay, that's a superb example of how they built Think with Google from nothing, and how that's become such an industry standard that everyone aspires to, right? So you can look at that as an example. There are lots of case studies online that you can look at. Think with Google in and of itself is a portal, so you can go and you'll get lost. It's like Inception. So you will go and you'll keep opening doors and you will keep getting more enriched. So I'd say studying examples like that, and also just sort of really, I see a lot of chat in the chat box. I'm sorry, I'm not able to read as I'm speaking, but I see a lot of examples that you guys are throwing in. Looking around you, for example, is the fourth and the best thing to do is, for example, looking at some of your favorite influencers, seeing how they are doing it, looking at some of your favorite brands that you buy or you consume or you follow online, and seeing how your sort of, your loyalty to them has been increasing because of the value that they have been creating through their content marketing, right? So let me leave you with one example before I move to talking about my own career journey. One of the finest examples I saw in 2020 was actually in India, and I'm a big fan. Definitely not being paid by them to say this, but if you're aware of this fitness company called CultFit, the company is called CureFit, but Cult is the name of their gyms, etc. So I was actually a member of the gym, and then 2020 happened and we all got locked down. What Cult did was amazing. They started creating a lot of content around fitness, nutrition, and mental health and counseling and medicine and all of that. And I'm just sitting here wondering, who's doing this? How are they doing this? How are they going live and online with their classes every day in the middle of a lockdown? You can see that the instructors doing it from their house, but it's superbly done, right? Now, it was free, by the way. It was free for definitely for all members, and I think it was free to a certain extent for non-members as well, right? So imagine the value it would have. I believe in fitness. I, I try and sort of exercise on a regular basis. So for someone like me and a whole lot of you, I'm hoping on the call, you would have been devastated by the fact that you are now having to sit in your apartment and there is all avenues of exercising for most of us have been stopped, right? Those of us who have the misfortune of living in apartments. That's when Cult comes in, understands the consumer needs, and creates amazing, free, accessible, value-led content to sort of help you in this environment, right? They have helped you, but what they have also done is what I started by saying, that they have converted me into a very, very loyal customer, because I have benefited directly from their content and their content marketing and their marketing, not so much even marketing, just their content marketing, right? I have benefited from that. And now when the world opens up again, let's take a wild guess which gym I'm going back to. There is no doubt in my mind, because of the quality of content that they have been putting up, that's the sort of fitness brand I want to associate myself with. So please also study their growth, both in terms of their app and just how they have embraced technology and just how personalized they have begun to feel. So yeah, if you're a fitness buff, that's possibly an example that you could check out. I know there are a lot of questions around my own career journey. Love to share some of it. We have about 7 minutes left, so I'll try and make it short so we can get a couple of more questions. I was joking with Shriram that when he asks me for advice on career navigation, my honest advice is don't follow my advice. And no jokes here, because you know how if you guys prefer a really linear path, you're not going to get it from me. So my purchase pathway is very circuitous, right? So I started off, I always wanted to be in content. I always thought I'd be a content producer, or I'd basically be hopefully running my own content outfit one day, right? That's the ultimate goal. So I'm from a really small town, and I go to do my graduation in Delhi, and the world opens up for me. I get recruited on campus by Unilever, and I have zero idea what marketing means. I have no idea what sales means. So I learn on the job. 5 years at Unilever, it's like going to your masters and more than that, because they really teach you the foundational principles of marketing. And I think my consumer obsession comes from Unilever. It's really is a great organization to be in if you want to learn the great principles of marketing and how to go to market. But the interesting part is I clearly didn't like being successful and comfortable. So I took a generous pay cut and I decided to pursue my content dreams. So I joined NDTV, and I see one of my ex-colleagues here, Ruchira. So she and I have the great opportunity of having worked together on a number of our shows. We were both producers and presenters, and I also ran the branded content division, and Ruchira and I have worked very closely together on a lot of that. So that was a dream come true, to be able to create my own content and have millions of people actually wanting to watch it. Ruchira and I used to do a show together called Big Spenders. If you guys don't remember it, shame on you. Google it, YouTube it, and check it out. So yeah, and that took me to Singapore. I continued to do content for a while. So I took the very big risk of going to Singapore in the middle of what was the biggest global recession. So again, like I said, don't follow my advice. Started pretty much from scratch over there by working with a boutique production house. Got a little lucky and worked really hard and got basically for, got recruited into one of the biggest regional sort of broadcasters, MediaCorp, based out of Singapore, and then on to Singtel, and then on to Netflix, where I work currently. So it's been, you can see that there is no linearity in what I do. I follow a very simple principle, which I call it the 80-20, right? So 80-20 is very simple. If I'm gonna take a job, I have to be 80% ready for it and 20% not ready for it. If I'm 100% ready for it, I'm not gonna take that job. So that's number one, which basically means that which basically means that I want to be uncomfortable. That's number one. Number two, guys, I am very driven by what my ultimate goal is. It doesn't make sense to my mother. It doesn't make sense to my family. So I don't at all expect that it'll make sense to you. And I don't want it to, because I think everyone's journey is very different. So whatever I have done in a very circuitous way makes sense to me. And I know why I'm doing it. And it has to make sense to you. If it doesn't make sense, so I get a lot of requests on a daily basis from people saying, we want to follow your career journey. And I'm like, why? Why do you want to follow my career journey? You haven't been witness to my pitfalls and some of my successes and a lot of my failures. So don't try to ape anyone's career journey. Learn from them and take some of the philosophies, but completely chart your own. How are you going to chart your own? I recommend two things. I recommend really looking at what your long-term goal is and allow for that long-term goal to change. I'm boring. My long-term goal hasn't changed since I was 11 years old, but yours can change. Please feel free to change it and work towards that. Secondly, I'd highly recommend challenging yourself in every role that you do. If you're not, you're just going to be one of those complacent employees and you'll honestly not learn anything for your next role. So I always, like I said, I take a risk and I say, you know what, I'm 80% ready, 20% not ready. So what? I'm going to figure it out on the job. So that's my extremely risky policy. So my risk appetite is decently high. Yeah, so leave that to you.
Got it. Thank you so much. I think it's been a wonderful session, right? I think what I wanted to talk to the folks on the call is, guys, I don't know where these 60 minutes went, frankly. I haven't even been able to cover maybe 30% of the questions in the chat box. I think we need to have multiple sessions.
That's a lot of questions. I've been talking for an hour.
Yeah, and it's been super engaging. I think most of the people on the call are going to agree that. Please put a thumbs up view here if you agree with me, right? A lot of rich insights, a lot of content we covered in the 60 minutes. What we have done at Antwalk is bring folks like Deepashree to come and teach you or impart what they have learned in the last 5 to 10 years of their experience. So our philosophy is very simple, right? You need to learn from practicing professionals. I think ho gaya time teachers or professors sab padh ke. Let's learn from the professionals who have got their hands dirty. Let's learn through live immersive sessions like these, not just self-recorded content. And let's learn by doing, right? Let's get our hands dirty, get the practical knowledge, of course, with the support from mentors such as Deepashree. So that's what our more primary mission has been. And in that, under the principles, we have started a digital marketing program. It's a 16-week boot camp, right? You will be trained by folks like Deepashree. We have Ishan coming from Google. We have Charit coming from Amazon. We have Gursimran coming from JioSaavn and so on, right? All of these come with a plethora of experience. They will be the one teaching you what works, what doesn't work. Use practical examples and projects. You will be working at least 100 hours of live classes and plus projects. And of course, you'll get to learn all the tools. Tools is just one part of it, but equally important, right? So if you guys are looking to get that notch up in your career in digital marketing, get trained by these fantastic experts. Do check our program out. I have put the link on the chat box. Do sign up. One of us will get in touch with you. The batch starts at the end of this month. It's going to be a roller coaster 16 weeks. If this is how it was for the last 60 minutes. So Deepashree, would you like to just talk a little bit about the module that you will be focusing on?
Yeah, sure. I think we are tentatively scheduled for the 19th of June. I'm excited about it. So guys, think of it as 2 classes, 2 live sessions with me. And in the week in between, there is an exercise that you'd be broken up into a couple of groups and you'd have to do that exercise and then come back. So the first class, I think Shriram can give you the exact details, but happens on the first weekend of 19 June, followed up by a project discussion class on the sort of the next week itself, and you have the week in between to sort of catch up with your batchmates and do your work. So this is what you can expect, right? So I'm going to be talking about a whole lot more about the science of content marketing, and at heart I think I'm a storyteller, so there's going to be a lot of art in that as well. I'm going to be giving you a lot of frameworks about how to build your content strategy. I'm going to be talking about social media. I'm going to be talking about how to create woke brands because that's my pet passion. I having followed and having had the honor of having worked with some of the best brands in the world. I think that's just something, sort of something that I'd like to leave you with. But my sessions are actually, I like them to be, my job is, I'm not a teacher. I never set out to be one. That was my mom's job and she was amazing at it, right? She still is. I am your partner in learning, right? My job is to challenge you. My job is to make you feel extremely uncomfortable about what you don't know. But in a nice way, because I'm nice. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to frame content marketing for you. I'm going to give you most of the tools. Can't promise to give you all of it in a 3-hour session. And then I'm going to let you use it in your project, in 2 live projects. So the groups will be broken up into 2 halves. So one of you will get one type of a brand, another will you get a grade. And those are real brands. I will not name them, but they are real brands and I know how to assess your success. And I'd love for you to use the tools I've given you, but also use other tools that you have from your everyday work, and bring it to the session the next Sunday where we will discuss and debate. Now, is there a marking system? Absolutely not. But I'd love for you to show me a side that I wouldn't have seen, right? Through your project, through your eyes. So I know the brands I'm giving you the examples of, I know how they have done their content marketing strategy. But if you give me something additional, then can you imagine we have just learned a little extra? So that's what I'm looking at. I'm looking at you not giving me templatized answers. I dislike templatized answers. So challenge me so I can challenge you.
Perfect. Great. So I think we have come to the penultimate couple of minutes. I request everybody, I'm just launching a 2-minute feedback, guys. Give us inputs on how the session was. It will help us improve the session, upcoming sessions. We have we typically have 1 to 2 sessions every week with such brilliant experts coming and sharing their insights. So take a few seconds and few questions only, 4 or 5 questions. In the meanwhile, Deepashree, a wonderful session. Thanks a ton. It was great having you here. I think we should bring you back every month, at least once. I think it was not on. I'm talking about as an individual. I think it was a great learning experience for me. I'm sure a lot of people on the session today agree with that. And we are looking forward to the boot camp. The boot camp starts on the 5th of June. And I think your session will be 4 weeks down the line. So thank you so much for the time again today, and looking forward to a very exciting 16 weeks. Thanks everybody on the call. I know it was a Saturday evening, but I'm glad you guys could come and attend this session from Deepashree, and hope you learned quite a bit.
Thanks, guys. I look forward to most of you, and thank you for spending an hour of your precious Saturday evening with us.
Thank you so much. Take care, guys. Have a good weekend.
Thank you.
Bye-bye.